David. Sarah, back to you.
Yeah. Chair. You'll be aware, I don't expect you to have read, but you've been aware of this committee's inquiry into women in the armed forces, female veterans, protecting those who protect us. We made 35 recommendations. The MOD are addressing in some way most of those. Sadly not murder, manslaughter and rape to be heard in the civilian courts, but they have gone a considerable way to meet our recommendations. Do you have any thoughts about that inquiry and the MOD's response? Charles.
So yes, absolutely. I'm very aware of women in the armed forces report. I think it's probably just echoing what you would say, urging the government to listen to these voices and to listen to the report, and particularly around rape, sexual assault. Frankly, to listen to the recommendations of the report and drive those through.
Nick.
Sarah, I'll pick it up from two perspectives. So I'm sitting right now at Sandhurst as the senior mentor to the Army Generals Programme. We're desperate to try and get you connected to the Generals course right now to talk about this particular issue, because culture and challenge are really important here. And I know, for instance, next week the Army is having a strategic reset where everybody in the serving Army, regular and reserve, has a day thinking about equality, diversity, and inclusion. Good stuff, a start, not the end, but at least the conversations are going. I'm really struck, interestingly, on this particular course where over the years the focus has been on purpose of the Army or whatever. The focus this year is on soft issues, it's challenge, it's culture, it's inclusion, and that's the serving community. Break, now going to the veterans community, is exactly the same issue, which is about reconnecting with those members of our veterans community who don't feel able to connect. So great news that the LGBT plus review is about to happen, and we'll be involved with Craig Jones and Caroline Page from Fighting with Pride with government and how that review is taken forward, I hope. In terms of recompense for people who were wronged historically. You have exactly the same issue, though, for female members of the Army prior to 2000 who had to leave when they became pregnant. So people who feel excluded from the system, and since then, as your report picks up, people who feel they have been wronged, or not just feel, who were wronged during their time in service and laterally. So it's a phenomenally important issue, this. The female veterans cluster is the first cluster I visited, actually, because I feel passionately about this particular area. We've got to do more on the veteran side on equality, diversity, inclusion. I hope you're heartened to hear that the away day that COMSIO had as a committee in December had two agenda points. One was on future of COMSIO, and the other one was how do we better get after equality, diversity, and inclusion. So I think that this is now an area which is firmly in the spotlight. Now we've got to do something about delivery.
Yeah, the MOD have recognised there's a lack of understanding and research around serving female personnel and veterans, and I understand they're making monies available to start this research, so there is sort of a database, there's a baseline to which to work from. So what areas, I suspect charities and academic establishments will be quite keen to get a slice of that funding. So what areas do you think they should be concentrating on? And I'm mindful that only a few days ago in the Times we had that report about domestic violence within the military landscape.
You've got, interestingly, we've got to make sure that we don't have some form of internal bidding war going on, because we have a research organisation funded through the OVA who are doing research on behalf of government, and then inside the charitable sector, Forces in Mind Trust, which is the charitable research element, are also doing research. Both of them want to commission research on female veterans and better understanding the needs of our veterans community, which is laudable, but we just need to make sure that those studies are in lockstep, because it will inevitably be the same specialists that bid for both studies. So I'm quite keen to ensure that we've got some sort of integrated approach across government into the charity sector to deliver outcomes. I can't answer the specifics of what areas I think they need to look at, apart from complex sexual abuse cases, obviously, but also other issues about hurt, historical hurt, within our veterans community. On the positive side, how our female veterans want to better access services. Because it's great if you're in the Women's Royal Army Corps pre-1995 or whenever, because you had a sense of a tribe that you could belong to. But since 1995, when females employed across the army, that sense of singularity and focus has diminished. So working out now how we look after our younger members of our female veterans is an area I'm quite keen to go under the bonnet of.
Charles, any more to add?
Sarah, just quickly, and I'm sure the Veterans Strategy Action Plan raises the importance of more research in this area, and I think it's something like 11% of armed forces personnel, veterans, are women. I think the one area we would want to focus on early is to understand, are there particular barriers? Are female veterans less likely to come forward for help and support? In our case, to the charities, but more widely, because suspicion that it may be more difficult for a whole host of reasons. And if it's harder hill to climb, then we need to understand why and see what we can do to make it easier for people to come forward, so they will be confident they're listened to and understood.
Charles, I think from our evidence, I'd agree with you on that one.